years have you earned a district level, a top award, meaning best in class or best in show or gold, silver, bronze certificates in photography? 23% said yes. And then to the question, in the last 5 years, have you earned at national level a placement of first, second, third, or honorable mention? 19% said yes. So what's behind this is we want to engage. If you are exhibiting in photography, then that aids your judging abilities. And that engagement is very, very important. So it was to see where we stand. And I hope when we do a similar survey in a year that those percentages will be greatly increased. So first up is writing a solid schedule at the local level. I've had the good fortune of reviewing many schedules from the local societies. And there's some must-haves in writing a solid schedule. And certainly it includes a time frame for entries, the number of photographs allowed per exhibitor, and no duplicate photos in multiple classes. So some groups will say 10 total. Others will say 3 per exhibitor. Whatever you decide as a local group is fine. The size, I think it's much better to offer one size. And 5x7 for local contests is recommended. There's always a question of should they be matted, mounted. It adds another hurdle to get people to put their photos in. Most of the local groups do not use matted or mounting, and they just have the photos displayed flat. But again, that's up to your local group. If you've been doing it that way, where you do require mounting, that's fine. Others see it as a little bit of a barrier to entry. Then who's eligible to enter? It's amateur. I was recently asked, so if someone makes their living doing photography, can they enter a local contest? Well, how you write the schedule is very important. Most of them are for amateur photography, amateur photographers. So write your schedule with that intent. Youth, how do you define youth? Is that age 6 and up, 12 and up? Is it open for your members only? These are internal discussions that you want to have. The goal is to encourage and to be as open as possible. Upward progression of entries is encouraged. Downward or lateral progression is not. What does that mean? So if you win at a local level, you certainly want to move that particular photo upwards to the district level or to the national level. But if you win at a national competition, then it is ineligible to move. You don't want to re-show it at a local level. So that downward or lateral progression is not allowed. You want to make a statement about digital enhancements, a statement about exhibitor grown. Many of the societies offer, just like they do with arrangements, if something is exhibitor grown, you qualify for a bronze, silver, or gold ARS certificate. So it's extra bragging rights. You need to write in your schedule, roses must be identified, when and how to claim photos, how will awards be bestowed, is it best in class, and then those best in class compete for first, second, and third place. How is judging conducted? And that point scoring must be stated as exactly in the photography rules and guidelines. Now, our photography rules and guidelines, uh, I just think it's an excellent handbook. The only little quibble I will have with it is that for a photography rules and guidelines, it lacks photos that illustrate the point that is being made. So, looking forward to no material change in rules and guidelines, but better illustration of those. Classes, descriptions, they need to be simply stated and clearly outlined, how judged. You don't want to put a class up that you have no idea how to judge. And then what are the photography awards that the exhibitors are vying for? So that thought goes into writing a solid schedule. So if you're a photo chair or a judge or someone who's been appointed, to write a schedule, these are good considerations to think about. It will avoid problems down the line. And then there are a few logistics to think through on a local level is how to provide help during entry time, so that exhibitors are well supported. And how will the photos be displayed? Will they be flat on tables, or do you have ladders of some sort to display them vertically? And if anyone needs good examples of ladders at the local level, I'm happy to provide you with a couple of sources who I think have done a great job with their ladders. What will designate judging placement? Will it be dots or ribbons? And how will the winning photos be displayed? A separate table, upright, in a metal or wooden holder? We want to think through that because we want to merchandise or market or recognize those winning photos. And then ordering ARS certificates in advance for those exhibitor grown awards is important. So when we talk about growing photography exhibiting at your local society, to me the judges are in the catbird seat. They are the ones who can lead by example and grow exhibiting from a horticulture perspective, an arrangements perspective, or a photographic perspective. You may want to consider rebranding your show, Rose and Photography Show. Give thought to how you display those photography exhibits. Host photo shoots spring and fall, and use your expert in your district to do that. It's a lot of fun, and it really engages people. And holding those photo shoots give them an opportunity that they otherwise would not have. Yeah. Get some great prizes for your winning photos. I know in my local group, we have an upscale garden center that has donates gift certificates of a large amount, and people really vie for those. You may want to consider select winning photos from your local group for your program cover, or for inside your program. You could mention that this was the top photo. You can put one on the cover and another one inside your program. Posting the local winners on your society's social media sites and encouraging participants to enter in district and national competitions is the key. Don't let them go make the effort and feel unrecognized. You want to be sure that they're fully supported and well recognized. That goes for all of us. Okay. So many people talk about, what do judges want? And I mean, aside from things like, disqualifications, and I mean, the true judging comes for uh, valuing that photo. And those rules are long standing, and it has to do with how the eye works, not necessarily what judges are looking for. Uh, Judges are looking for exactly how the eye works. So, in other words, a sharp focus for the eye to settle on, you know, something that's well cropped, because cropping gives the subject room to, move into or look into the picture. Sometimes you can crop too close. I'm a tiny bit guilty of that. Sometimes I have to rethink some of my cropping, because I tend to crop closer rather than far away. But cropping is a something to pay attention to. So there's really no mistake into what's intended. And if you're talking landscapes, uh, how the eye works is that it's not interested in uninteresting sky or any bland, foreground. It's interested in movement, in motion, in being taken along a journey around a path or to the end of a tunnel. Sometimes people stage photographs. I know John Matia, for example, he does a lot of this in the Elizabeth Park garden, and they have beautiful kind of tunnel of roses, and he set up a beautiful shot by planting two people at the very end of it, kind of as an anchor, so that it pulls your eye to the end of that tunnel. And it's quite lovely photo. Uh, you don't want to truncate the subject, uh, and that kind of rule may be out when we're talking creative, interpretive photos, but it's because it's jarring and it leaves an incomplete look. And one of the big things about how the eye works is distractions. And we talk about this all the time in horticulture. And so in your photography, you don't want to include objects that don't add to, or more importantly, distract from the main subject of interest. And this gets at, what does that background look like? You may have a beautiful, um, perfect horticultural specimen, and the background is so distracting, your eye wanders to the pot, or to the mulch, or to uh, a patch of black spot, or whatever it is that's distracting, and it takes your focus off that incredible bloom. So again, it's how the eye works. And your eye responds to depth of field, and that's simply the distance from the front to the back that's in focus. And I always say, wow, this pops if something has a good depth of field. This depth of field is a little hard to achieve with the smartphones. Perhaps with the professional models, it's getting better, the 3 lenses. But with your professional cameras, um, this depth of field is very important. And I have a good example to show you. So, from the Judging Rose Photography Guidelines and Rules, point scoring is set just like point scoring is set for horticulture and it's set for arrangements. And this, when you're writing your schedule, this point scoring is your way of communicating to your exhibitors and judges, how um, the how your rose photographs will be judged. And there's 5% for conformance. And you'll see in the manual, it breaks down conformance, to a T. Like if you're taking just one bloom, is it named? Is the name of the rose shown? Is the name of the exhibitor not shown? Is the arranger named? In other words, does it conform to entry rules? And then horticultural excellence uh, is the reason you're here, because the majority of the classes that we have are around horticultural excellence. When we talk one bloom or spray or open bloom, or singles or miniatures, any of the hort classes, 50% of your, and this is internal point scoring, it is about horticultural excellence. You're just applying that to a photo. 15% composition, technique, and distinction. When we talk about composition, we're talking about color, quality, contrast, framing of a subject, simplicity with lack of distraction. If you're talking about technique, which is 15 points, that includes like correct exposure, depth of field, lighting. And does it feel that the photo pops, meaning you could reach out and touch it? Because when that's achieved, you've got a great photo. And then distinction. Distinction has to do with, is there a wow factor? Or as Bill Kay will tell you when he goes through the creative interpretive photos, that this distinction means, would you want to take that photo and hang it on your wall and look at it every day and never get tired of it? So 15 points distinction, that's a lot. And so the total is 100. We don't do point scoring every photo. If you have 1,200 photos, that would be a bit unrealistic. But when we get down to, the 3 or 4 that you're looking at, point scoring is very important. And you do want to keep this in the back of your mind, just like you do in horticulture judging. You want to have this template, and it needs to be firmly fixed. And if you don't, there's nothing wrong with having the manual with you. You take it, print it out, or have it online. And as you address the very photos that are very close to call, use this point scoring technique. It will help a lot. So, if we could point score class 2 together. I hope everyone recognizes this little miniature.
Crazy Daddy.
Yeah, that's it, Crazy Daddy. So it's a very photogenic rose. I mean, we see a lot of Crazy Daddies and a lot of singles because many of them are photogenic because of the simple construct and the beautiful stamens that it offers up. So 2 side-by-side pictures, and this is the same rose. taken a day apart with two different cameras. So on the left-hand side of your screen, if we go through and point score this, how do you think it's fresh? Which bloom looks fresher? Which bloom, the conformance is the same, the horticultural excellence, so 50%. Which bloom looks fresher? Which bloom has better coloration of the petals? Okay. Which bloom has not only the petals, but fresher stamens? And then if you look at, composition, wow, which bloom pops? Which bloom has no distraction? Okay. And as far as technique goes, I think the lighting on one is better than the other, although I wouldn't quibble. I think certainly the foliage on one and the framing, the cropping is better on one than the other. I'm a little distracted by the dirt in the upper left-hand corner of the rose on the right. I'm a lot distracted by the cropping of that. And from a distinction standpoint, although there are a few color faults in a few blemishes in the petals, and I probably would advise to Photoshop the little white color marks on the petals. It would make it a perfect photo. But if you point score these, because of the depth of field, because of the framing, because of the lack of distraction, the one on the left point scores much higher than the one on the right. I would take off several points for the freshness. You can see the curve on the petals on the left. They're just opening. The one on the right, it's gone from yellow to white, and those petals are flat. So to me, that's the difference of a couple of points. The distraction, the cropping, I would take off a couple of points from the one on the right. So to me, easy choice is the one on the left would receive the highest point scoring. It would be my pick. Okay, so judging one bloom, again, you're going to follow simply horticultural guidelines, 50%. You're going to ask yourself, is it fresh? Is there good coloration representative of the variety? Is there good symmetry? Is there a distinctive center? No distractions. And then from a photography standpoint, which is 45%, is the subject completely in focus? There are many times where maybe the front part of the rose will be in focus and the side or the back will be out of focus. Is it overexposed or underexposed? And there's a way to address that. Just some techniques to either diffuse lighting or to reflect lighting. Does it pop, meaning there's a good depth of field? Is it well cropped? Is there movement? Is there a wow factor? Are there no distractions? So these are the things you ask yourself and you discuss, because in photography we team judge and we mimic the same process we have in horticulture. It's team judged, and then the top roses to select the court. It's done through balloting of the judges. So let's look at this one bloom. This is black Baccara. I love this photo, but it can be improved. When you first look at it, what stands out to me are the leaves. And that's because of the way the photo was cropped. And then if I take a closer look at this, I really like the symmetry of the bloom. I love the separation of petals. I love the lighting on this. The cropping can improve, but the center is almost gone. This photo is just maybe a day late, or maybe a morning late. So if you're judging one bloom and you have this is, of course, moonstone. And you can see how lovely it is nestled in the green foliage. There are what we call, floating blooms. They have that black background. You kind of want to be aware of that. It can be distracting to some, just a stark black background. Seeing the rose framed by foliage in more of a natural setting typically should be rewarded. If we look at this and it's in motion to me, because the symmetry is so nice that it looks like a spinning wheel. And that symmetry is what draws you into this. Also, the coloration and this wonderful separation of petals. And this photo is by Mattia, if I remember correctly. But in the same category of one bloom, and this has a wow factor. Moonstone is, when we were keeping records of exhibition roses and exhibition winners, Moonstone has been in the top 10 category across the country for an exhibition rose. And it's been number 1 or 2 for the last 10 years. So naturally, it's a very photogenic rose. Again, this is Moonstone, a different version, and quite excellent. This was submitted by Glenn Hodges in Kansas City. And you can see how this moonstone is also nestled in very lush green foliage. The petal separation is wonderful. The coloration is, compared to the other moonstone, is a bit different. It's a little more washed out. The other had a lot of more pink coloration. So let's look at the 3 of these combined. And if you were judging these 3, the black Baccara, the moonstone, and the moonstone, which would you choose? And if you think about, the wow factor, the distinction, the coloration, symmetry, separation of petals, everything from a horticulture perspective overlaid with your photography perspective, you would go with the center moonstone. So if we're looking at open bloom, stamen showing, you want to ask yourself, is the rose fresh? Are those stamens fresh? The operative word in this is stamens, okay? Open bloom, stamen showing. Is the coloration representative of the variety? Good symmetry, distinctive center, no distractions. And from a photography standpoint, is the subject completely in focus? Is it overexposed, underexposed? Does it pop? Is it well cropped? Is there perhaps some movement? Are those stamens swaying in the wind? Are they luring you in? Is there a wow factor? Are there no distractions? Do the stamens pop? You know, this is a fun category. And once you start entering this, boy, you will pick up on on different roses that are perfect for this category. Like this isn't Sugar Moon, this is Marc Chagall, but Sugar Moon is a white rose with beautiful golden stamens that have red anthers. So it's always a showstopper if you can get a good shot of it. But let's just look at this photo, and you look at the petals. Striped roses are fun to judge. If you look at this really closely, this is a wonderful bloom. I love the cropping, love everything about it. If you look to the left, there are a few petals that are somewhat maybe weather beaten, but the stamens are as fresh as they can be. And I don't know if it's the angle, perhaps it is, or the rose itself. The the center is a slightly offset. It's not exactly symmetrical. It doesn't bother me that much. The few of the petals do, though. And on these striped roses, you have to look really close for kind of a little bit raggedy petals, maybe a little weather tainted. But stamens showing, bam. And if you look at this particular rose, I believe this is opening night. So this is a very showy rose, these golden stamens on a red rose. There are some improvements that could be made to this photo. If you look at from a horticulture perspective, there's some petal faults in there. There's a lot of spray material on the foliage. From a photographic perspective, I would have cropped out. I would have cropped it much differently to crop out the bud that's distracting from above, and making flat the petals that are impeding full viewing of the stamens would help. It's also a tiny bit overexposed. If you see, we're losing definition of the main bloom to the left-hand side of the bloom. Seems like the focus is on the lower right hand, and so it gets washed out. So has again some points would be taken off for each of those items mentioned. Not a pleasing framing, particularly for this. So this open bloom stamen showing, lovely, lovely foliage, and good symmetry, good separation of petals, and nothing hiding the stamen and anthers. So when you put them together and you're judging, the nod would go to the rose on the left, and the name escapes me right now, but excellent submittal. Okay, so if we're talking about judging sprays, and this is again a very popular class, it can be a little bit hard, particularly if you go to public gardens for this. This is Love at First Sight.
No,
It is no. What is it?
Is it falling in
concentrating.
love? Falling
Say,
in love, perhaps?
pardon?
Falling in love, maybe?
Yes, yes.
It's falling in love.
Thank you, thank you. I knew it was love. Fallen in love. The blooms are magnificent. If you want some good thorns, this is the rose for you. It's very, very thorny, but with these delicate pink blooms on it. So with the spray class, what counts, and from a horticulture perspective, is inflorescence. And that's creating a pleasing shape when viewed from above or from the side. And that pleasing shape can be a triangle, it can be an oval, or a circle. If there was a fourth bloom that took off in another direction that distracted from this would fall apart, because this is about inflorescence. That's true in hort and it's true in photography. You want to capture that lovely inflorescence. They got this at equal stage of bloom, their exhibition form. So this is a lovely photo. There's a little greenery down at the bottom. Otherwise, the background is black. This is help me out. I'm State of Grace. This is State of Grace, nestled in nice, lush green foliage. I think the cropping is superb on this. Again, the inflorescence. This is more of a decorative form rose as it begins to open up. They captured that pretty much at equal stages, but this coloration that it shows, the pink and fading into caramel colors, I think the coloration on this is exceptional. So this is more of a triangle shape. And so here's another spray. So this is, it's nestled in nice foliage. It definitely has a nice triangle shape, good inflorescence. But if we put on our hort cap, we can see that the top right-hand side bloom, it has a petaloid, if you will, over top of the stamens. And if those stamens are fresh, maybe they should show. And then the bottom one, it's not good separation of petals. Perhaps if the stamens were fresh, a petal could be removed to show that. And then in this, it's actually four blooms there. The fourth bloom is a bit neither here nor there. It's lost its luster. And then there's a little distraction about how this is cropped. if you look to the right-hand side, and also from top to bottom. The top doesn't have any space to it, and the bottom has probably an inch and a half. So just a little grooming and some better cropping would make it a better contender. So if you're judging these three, the nod would go to State of Grace. So with that, what I'd like to do is next talk in the interpretive creative classes. And I'll leave that to Bill Kuzemchak, who is on the call. Bill Kuzemchak and Rich Bear are co-presenters today. Bill is a masterful exhibitor, CR, photographer, and leader in his organization. He grows over 1,000 roses. He holds photo shoots to help others. He is the photography chair of Penn Jersey and has a lot of experience and success in the creative interpretation. So with that, I'll turn it over to Bill.
Thank you, Pam. Okay, when we're doing the creative interpretation class, in the judging guidelines, the first sentence has, on page 44, a photograph should demonstrate originality and creativity. And the first line here is it imaginative? What you're looking for is something other than just an actual photo of a good horticultural exhibit. It's another way of looking at the rose or parts of the rose. Second line we have is use of good photo use photo editing software ranging from filters, composite edits, artfully done. There's a lot of photo filters anymore in the Photoshops and other programs you can use to edit photos. And a lot of times, they're really easy to use, but you don't always get the result you want. A lot of times it's playing with it. I've used a lot of different photos and photos I've entered. And a lot of times you get something pretty quick. Other times you got to spend some time on it to get what you're looking for. Someone just goes on, clicks a button, whatever the preset is for it, and enters it. It's not going to be really artfully done. It's just going to be a different way of looking at it. So it is something you need to take some time doing if you're using filters to kind of make the photo. Next is there still photographic excellence with no horticultural editing but background changes that make it unique. Sometimes people will take a rose and the rose can be as you would see it, but it could be put in a different setting. The background could be changed to make it look like the rose is somewhere else or part of a scene from somewhere else, not necessarily in the garden. Another thing I want to say is in the guidelines, you don't necessarily have to use Photoshop. One of the lines on page 25 when they talk about creative interpretation is the judge needs to remember that actual photographic excellence can also be used in creative interpretation with no use of photo editing software. You'll see when I get to my examples, I have a photo like that that was taken in the garden. And when I saw it, it reminded me of something, so I named it that. And there was no filters used with it. But in my mind, it was a really excellent, creative interpretation. So that's another thing. You don't necessarily have to use Photoshop or editing software for it. And I've been in some photo show or some road shows where they've been judging photos, and they get to the class, and some of the times you'll hear the judge say, well, I don't know if this is really abstract because there's no Photoshop done to it. It doesn't necessarily need to be Photoshopped. If you can convey the feeling of something else with the object you're taking, it doesn't necessarily. So keep that in mind when you're judging, that you don't have to have 1, 2, 3, 4 different filters used in the thing. If it's really good photographic excellence and the picture conveys something other than what you're looking at, that's also a really good way to, enter the creative interpretation classes. Next line, is a photo busy or so cluttered that it becomes distracting? You can, we've seen a lot of examples of photos that are just over photoshopped. Sometimes people think the more they do, or the more colors, or more different filters they can use, makes it a really great photo, but sometimes it's just, there's too much going on, and it becomes distracting, and it's not something you are really impressed with. They're not really conveying a feeling of something. It just looks like they spent a lot of time manipulating the photo. Creative naming is also part of the creative interpretation. Is the work creatively named? That's another thing. When you enter stuff, I try to come up with something creative of what the photo is conveying to me, or what it should be conveying to the people that are looking at it. I have entered some where I really haven't creatively named it, and they've still done well. But that is something that the judges are looking at, and it will certainly help kind of maybe sway them in the direction you're looking when you created the photo. If they read the name and then they see the photo and it clicks, okay, this is what the person's doing. That's a big part of it. So you want to try to be creative when you name it. Okay, this is these are some of the photos I've entered in the past. This one is Rosa rubifolia, Rosa glauca. This was done with a neon edges filter. What it was originally, I've entered this different photos this a couple times. It was I cut sprays off the Rosa glauca, Rosa rubifolia, and I laid it on a black velvet background to kind of take away any distractions. And then this one here, I used the neon edges and kind of manipulated it until I got the kind of look I wanted. The color was pleasing to me. It kind of makes it a little bit different than what you would just see the rose, at the hips is, in plain color. And in my idea, this was a good, good entry. I liked it. It was very pleasing to me. But it's not the best that I've had. Next, Pam. All right, this one here, as I said before, you don't necessarily have to use a lot of filters or any filters. This is Sweet Vivian. This is a shot of stamens I took. I've entered it in color, and this one is in black and white. The abstract class, I think the black and white popped a little more, made it a little bit different than just having it in color and seeing, just like a kind of like a horticultural exhibit. And I also took it from the back. We're shooting stamen photos. We're usually doing it from the front or from an angle from the front. I just happened to be walking by one day and I saw this and I thought, I really like the look of it from the back, and it's, you know, kind of a different interpretation. Another exhibitor had entered one last year in the ARS contest, and it placed, I forget what class it was in, but it was a similar angle. And you can really see the detail on the sepals here. The stamens are nice and crisp, really good photographic excellence. And this one I didn't really give a good name to it. I think I just called it posterized Sweet Vivian stamens. So it kind of lost a little there, but as Pam had mentioned earlier, one of the things I like in the judging guidelines as far as distinction was in there is this a photo that I won't get tired of? Is this a photo I would enjoy hanging on my wall and not get tired of it? And this is one, every time it pops up, I always enjoy seeing it. And it's one that I would really like to have hanging, you know, maybe someday I'll get a print of it made. So this, I like it a little bit better than, you know, the past one. Next. This was a first place winner either last year or the year before in the master class, the abstract class. This is easy on the eyes. I think I did a watercolor filter on this. It was an excellent horticultural bloom. Good photograph, as Pam mentioned before, with the cropping. It's framed nice by the leaves, but you get a little bit different feel with the watercolor filter, and it's something I play with quite a bit to try to get it to look exactly like I want it to. Wasn't just a matter of one click and boom, I'm done. It kind of looks like I may have taken, you know, the photo somewhere and had someone paint it, or someone come to the garden almost and kind of paint it. So this is one I really like, and this is another one that I don't think I'd ever get tired of if I had it hanging on my wall. Next. So you can kind of see the three of them here. I do like all of them. Like I said, the rubifolia hips, it's interesting, catches your eye. There's a lot of movement in it. With all the colors and the neon and, you know, the crazy stamens on those, it's one that does make your eye move around a lot. And the Sweet Vivian, the stamens, like I said, I really love the position of the rose and the angle that it was photographed from. And there's a feeling of motion there. It looks almost like the stamens are being blown, you know, by the wind away from you.
Exactly.
So, and like I said, the detail in the stamens and stuff, or the sepals, you know, you can see the small hairs and stuff. I think makes it a little better than the rubifolia one. And then the last one, like I said, it kind of reminds me of a painting somebody would have did of that. To me, there's not a huge difference between the three of them, especially between the stamens, the Sweet Vivian, and the other. And you're going to have that when you're judging. You may get 2, 3, 4, 5 photos that are just so close. You're kind of nitpicking here or there, or just, you know, seeing whichever one really moves you, and which one. Like I said, when you get to this level of competition, a lot of the photos are going to be really close. So a lot of it does come down to the distinction one. Have you seen this before? Is it something new? Is it something that people do all the time? Those photos, if it's something that people do all the time, they kind of don't tend to do as well. If it's something new or a little bit different way of looking at it, or even a different rose sometimes done the same way that's unique that you haven't seen, that can make it pop. And when it comes down to, you know, picking the best of, I think keeping that thought in your mind, if I had to look at these photos every day, which one am I gonna, enjoy for the longest and not ever get tired of looking at it? So that's kind of how I try to determine when I get to, we get to the top of the classes and we're picking the best. So I kind of try to keep that in my mind. Next. This is another photo here. Now this one, I walked out in the garden. It was in the middle of the winter. I was taking snow pictures. And this was behind my house, I think under the gutter. Water had been falling down where the snow had melted and it dripped on this rose leaf. And as soon as I looked at it, I thought it looked like a butterfly chrysalis to me. So of course I had my camera. I was probably out taking snow pictures that day. So I snapped photos of it. I thought it was really interesting. And when I come in and I put it on the computer, I fell in love with it. To me, it's got that feeling of the snow chrysalis plus the water on it that had frozen. The leaves are old, dried up brown rose leaves that are going to be gone, shortly. But with the ice and the sunlight hitting it,
Very nice.
they look almost gold. It's got that really nice photographic quality to it. And like I said, I did nothing to this photo as far as filters or anything. This is the way it looked in the garden with the sun shining on it. So, and I've entered this quite a few times. Most times it didn't do much until I finally ended up winning one of the contests, but at the district level. But for years and years, I just thought, this is another one I wouldn't mind having. But in saying that, the background's not real exciting. So although I love the thing, it's a good photo. I really love it, but it could be a little better. This one here is Sunstruck. I think this was posterized too. It's one of the fillers on the thing. It was a beautiful bloom, great horticultural, excellence to it. Beautiful center, nice symmetry. It just, the way the petals unfurl, I thought I wanted to do something with it. I didn't think it was going to win in horticultural classes. Had a few issues, but I just love the color of the bloom. And I thought I need to do something with this. So I played around with a lot of different filters until I came upon this one. And then probably spent another 20 minutes, half hour getting it to exactly where I wanted it with the shading. It just enhanced the beauty of the rose already. Posterizing, a lot of the shadows were a lot lighter, and when I used the posterized filter, you can see down inside the petals where you'd have the dark apricot color turned it black, and it just kind of exaggerated the shape of the rose and the petal and the depth of it. It just really made it pop. So I kind of like this one, better than the other one. Next. And this was the, once again, the rubrifolia hips. This was the original shot that I had used, but this I believe was posterized also. And it looks very close to how they look naturally, but the posterizing just gave it a different texture and a different feel. And when you look at it, as Pam said, eye movement, I look at it, my eye wants to go in 100 different directions. The curve of the sepals, the different colors, the voids, you see the hips, the black background kind of keeps you focused
Yes.
on the hips.
Yes.
But my every time I look at it, my eye just doesn't know where to go and it doesn't know where to stop. It just kind of keeps moving around the photo, and it's one that I just really love. And I don't know if it's the same photo or a different photo that was in the last set of 3, but that was done with the neon edges, was good. But I think this is a little more natural, but it's not quite natural. So it's always been a favorite of mine. So once again, you can kind of see, like I said, I love the chrysalis rose leaf, but the background is kind of plain and, bare, and it doesn't hold a lot of interest. The rose leaves and the ice and the color, really do. So, I think that's a really, really, really good abstract photo, but not the best. And the sunstruck, like I said, I just find that a little more visually interesting. If you grow the rose or seen the rose, you kind of know what it is, but it's a totally different way of seeing it. It just, the voids being darker and kind of the darker edges, it kind of just makes the rose seem a lot deeper and just kind of pop a little more. And then for the best, I said the Rosa rubifolia one, my my eyes just don't stop when they look at that. And I picked that one for the best of the 3.
Great. Bill, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking us through the creative interpretive photos. I'd like to move now to Rich Bear, who will cover macro photography and how to judge some of those macro photos. Rich Bear also grows, only on the West Coast, 1,000 roses as well. He is very, very active in all aspects of exhibiting, and particularly in photography. He has been, he's at the master level, as Bill Kay is, but Rich has been at the master level. The master level was created for people like Rich. He is a consulting Rosarian and a leader within his organization, and gives countless talks on and help to photography, rose photography specifically. Rich, and I don't know if everyone knows this, he took the photo of the peace stamp that was, I don't know, what was that, Rich? Maybe 6,
In
7,
98, 99, no, 2018. I'm in the wrong century. I'm sorry.
Okay, 2018. Yeah, which was a big splash. And he has some beautiful, beautiful photos of peace. And he takes several thousand photos a year. So he has a lot to work from and a lot to share with us today. So, Rich, I turn it over to you.
Well, I have to admit, 2 days ago, it was a major shock to me to have Pam call and say, "What I teach judging of macros." Well, I've never judged locally. I've done a little judging on our Pacific Northwest. So more, I'm going to talk about what I think about how I'd like to have them looked at. Whether there's no rules right now to doing this, so it's to be a little different. I started out with macro about 35 years ago when I started teaching rose classes. And when I worked for Edmonds Roses, we'd get calls on the phone all the time. "We have these insects in the garden and it looks like an alien." And they wanted to know what it was. So at that point, I started taking, my macro was taking insects. And I probably taken 10,000 insect pictures. And one of them you'll see in here today. The problem is that they aren't too exciting. And due to the looking at things very tiny in the garden, looking at the insects, I started taking pictures of other parts of the garden. And that got me into the macro photography, which I really enjoyed today. But there's a big difference about judging macro photography as opposed to all the other classes. And Bill just went through very much of the same things that I could say, and that is there aren't any, there's nothing to compare it to. There's no guidelines, there's no point scoring system. It's pretty much in the mind of the judge as to what he'd like to see and what will be awarded. So I think it's a difficult class to judge because it is just the interpretation of the person doing it, and you have nothing to compare it to. I believe that every time I take a picture, and I think most photographers are probably this way, they would like it to be something that is beautiful in itself. Bill said the same thing. He said, I always like to think I would like to see this picture on my office wall. I judged a national photo contest down in San Diego a few years ago, and I left a lot of people feeling very unhappy because that is the way I judged it, and they wanted it judged by numbers on classes and all that sort of stuff. And when I got through, it wasn't the greatest rose ever taken pictures of, but the picture was the most beautiful one, I thought, in what I wanted to see. A few little notes here. A good macro should portray things that you will not see with the naked eye or cannot appreciate. I mean, that's the idea of the macro class, was to get very high resolution of small things that you can see in the pictures. Every macro photo that is probably subjected to judging will be unique. So you have nothing, and you just saw Bill's collection, and every one is totally different. In deciding which one is the best, probably if 8 of us all looked at them, we'd all have 8 different ideas. And I would even differ with Bill's idea because I didn't think the one that he's really in love with, I wasn't. But it's that first look at it, sometimes it's what it does to you. In taking a picture of a bloom, you know, we know what, as an arrangement or as a horticulture judge, you know what excellent blooms look like. But when you're doing these other 2 classes, there's no rules as to what you should be photographing. Sometimes the macros, to be successful, most of my insect pictures I think are too simple. And I have the one picture there. I thought they're all great macro pictures, but are they satisfying to other people? They're good for education because none of my insects look like aliens. They look like the insects they are. And when I do a class, I said, I hope I'm showing people what things they really look like. And I said, usually after I give one, I get feedback through the rest of the year because people start looking small in their garden. And a lot of times they never see the things that I show them until I show them that these things are there up close and look in a garden. And they start seeing them then because they start looking at their garden differently. So what I thought, mostly, there's a picture of a syrphid fly larva doing what they do best, and that is eat aphids. And would that make a good macro? To me, it's a beautiful macro picture, but the judges, there's the wow factor is a lot short there. It shows what I wanted it to, but as a beautiful macro picture, that's probably not one that would ever wind up on my wall. And so when I look at things in the garden, and every time I'm in the garden, I'm always looking small because I'm looking for things that I think are beautiful and I can use and take pictures of, because I like to have stuff that's pretty. This is the stipules of a keepsake rose showing a little bit of phyllody in the green parts. But overall, the beauty of all the little parts in there, I think, make that a good macro photo of what I have. You can see this stuff in the garden, but you probably never looked at it up this close. And it gives you an opportunity to see things that you are around you in the garden all the time, but you never really look at. And that's the idea, is to show you the beauty in a lot of the things that you can't see or don't see. And after you've picked a number of roses or pictures that have this wow factor that I think is a wow factor, then you can go into picking the best ones by going through the photographic excellence. And that includes focus and the lighting and the distractions and all that sort of material. As I said, I go through, Pam said I do several thousand photos every year. And one thing I tell all my new photographers, I said, if you want to be known as a good photographer, anything that's not excellent, throw it away and never show it to anybody. Only share the very best things you have, and people think you're great. I have pictures. When I started this, we used film. It was a strange thing, and I would often have large piles of stuff on my desk that were going in the wastebasket. I take pictures of it. I said, these are all the rejects, because if they're less than perfect, I don't want to see them in my collection. Because the world is beautiful. Here's another one, just the stamens of awfully moundy. You can get the she's not going to tell me which one it was.
So what
But
is
anyhow, say it again, said Pam.
Say it again, Rich.
Hannah Gordon. It's been one of my favorites over the years because it does have such beautiful reproductive parts. I said most people don't look at them that close, but to me that is a photo with a great wow factor in the beauty of the stigmas and the styles and the pollen as well. So that's one that would, of the 6 I gave you, that is one that I would wind up in the final class. But that would not be the final 3. There's a few more that I just flip one of the other ones up there if you would, Pam.
Sure.
Okay, in macro, one of the important things I think is showing things that you wouldn't normally see because you're blowing it up in a class. And this is, every rose leaf in your garden has a stipule on it, and you've probably never looked at one up close and personal. I spent 3 weeks trying to get this picture last year, trying to find the right stipule in the garden, and then also trying to find a way to light it so that I could get what I wanted to see. And as Bill said, a lot of times you see things in your head, and then trying to get them onto a piece of film can often be very, very difficult. And trying to get the lighting right so that these things showed up. Like I said, you'll see them in the garden every day, but you'll never see this kind of an object in the garden because they're way too small to see. And I think that is really the base of all macro photography, is showing things that are routine around you that you've never seen because they're too small to see. And just by the value of macro photography means we're blowing it up so that you can see it. And there's a couple more there that I think that's just another stigma and style with the phyllody, which is the people call vegetative centers or stuff like that, but it's a particular botanically the green thing growing out of the middle of the style I found to be very nice. But on the other hand, the distraction in this one is around the edge. There's a lot of parts of this photograph that are brown and not very attractive. So it was included, but it was the other one that is similar to it is a much better photograph as far as judging it for me, as I'm concerned. And then there were other things that you probably won't see. And again, I'm always looking for little things. I was pruning stormy weather, and I noticed that the new growth, this is what the new prickles look like on stormy weather. And I thought that looked like something that I'd like to try to get a picture of, because I doubt you've ever noticed this, but that's the tiny little prickles as they're beginning to grow in stormy weather. And a lot of roses and things have very attractive little stem things that you can take of in the macro section, and they turn out to be very photogenic. I don't have any special equipment. I just have a 100 millimeter lens that I shoot through. Years ago, I got lots of equipment, and too cumbersome for me now. I don't mess around much with all the stuff that I used to. Then there was one other one in there too, Pam. And this is another one. This is just a peduncle of the rose fortune, which only exists in my garden because it's a sport of another rose. But again, I was pruning it one day, and you can sort of see things when you're working in a garden, but you don't know what they're going to look like when you blow them up to see them 10 times life size. And I tell people, if you're doing macros, always be alert to anything that you see that looks like it might be photogenic, and then you can try to take pictures of it, see if you can get a picture of it that's photogenic. And a lot of times going from seeing it and to getting it into a class is very difficult. But when you get to the end, we're supposed to be talking about judging, and I find it very difficult to judge because I don't like to be judgmental of other people's work, because they have worked very hard at it. They're usually proud of their work, and I'm going to tell them, no, we don't like it. And that's just something I don't like to do, because I think we all do good work in a garden. And if I had to pick one of them, and which is one of the things that I said, like Bill did, I would pick the stipule in the center, for the main reason that it allows me to see things and show you things that you have probably never seen. And I think that is the really basis of what we're doing with macro photography. Just taking a picture of the petals or something like that up close. We see those all the time, but three of these four things you have probably never seen in your garden. And that's because they're there. It's just the fact that they're too small for you to see. So the macro photography allows me to share lots of things in my garden through that means. And I'm always trying to find some new areas. And I started doing stipules because I was talking to Bob Martin one time, and he was talking about polyantha roses, and he said they've all got big stipules, which I'd never noticed before until after talking to Bob. And I spent the rest of the summer shooting stipules on roses all over. And this just happened to be what I considered, of all the pictures I took, which I probably took 300-400 of them, to be the best single picture showing off what the beauty of one stipule could look like. So as far as judging is concerned, it comes down to what appeals to you more than anything else, and then that gets you down to the final few, and then you can start applying all the rules of photography, which are, focus. I violate a lot of rules, and some of which have been written by Bill and Tom. I use way too small of a aperture. They always tell me if you go below 13 or 15, you're going to run into interference. And someday I'm going to call one of these two guys and say, would they please send me a picture showing interference? Because in the thousands of pictures that I have taken, And a lot of them I shoot at 29 and 32. I have never seen interference um, degrade any of my pictures. Um, so I don't know what to say about this. I wish I had more interesting things to say about judging, but it becomes so personal about looking at things because they're all different. You can't judge a stem against a stipule by rules. It just doesn't work. You just have to look at it and say, I think that's a more beautiful picture than this one. And if you've got a team of judges, you're going to wind up with 3 or 4 different ones at the top. And then you're going to have to decide some way. And I said, that can be through photography. I said, most of mine have been pretty well selected. There's nothing in there that's out of focus or backgrounds are distracting or things like that. So it shouldn't be too many things you could be critical of these particular pictures. But then you're looking at a group of different photographers, and you'll find lots of different things that you can look at and be critical of.
Great. Rich, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Next time, more than 24-hour notice.
Okay, let's talk about judging garden photos. And garden photos are about composition, blooms, movement, and the journey that that particular photo may take you on. So let's look at a couple of garden photos. I love this photo. I like the, it's definitely got roses in it. It's a great photo. If we were advertising hen carts, okay, or beautiful lawns, because both dominate the photo. So when we talk about garden photos, we want to be sure that the garden is our central focus. Okay. This is a recent garden peek, and this is Dave Candler's photo. It's a beautiful, beautiful snapshot because it looks like we're peering into a garden. The angle makes this. And the framing by natural vegetation, the rickety old wooden fence, and the trees in the background. And of course, the garden is in full bloom. So it's like being a voyeur, and just he captured and framed this beautifully. So it looks like we're peeking into the garden. So great, great angle, very different garden photo. Love it. And then if we look at this, we talk about movement in a photo and vertical lift to give it interest. And of course, it has to be in full bloom. Now, this photo has some great, great composition, and this angle and the cropping is superb. If you look at the hedge runs throughout. It looks like quadrants in the garden, and the hedge anchors the bottom, serves as an anchor, the bottom of the photo. And you really work your way down the path and through that fountain in the background. So it does take you on a journey, and it's a sweeping view. And this is not easy to do, and to have the clarity and the lighting is great. So this is all about the composition and the cropping and the thought that went into how to best display this. And this is one of Rich's photos. So if I'm putting those 3 photos together and I have to judge which is the best of those 3, it would go to this Portland garden. Okay, so that's all the photos that we'll review today. Uh, we haven't covered arrangements, and that's with a purpose. Typically, arrangements at the local shows is not a class. It's typically more of a competition class in the district and certainly in the national contest. The key is having an arrangement judge those photos. So you're judging it both from an arrangement standpoint as well as from a photographic standpoint. The one key thing with the arrangement photos is to keep it at eye level. And if there's papers or tags or comments, things, you want to remove that because that could add to a distraction. But because we typically don't do that at the local level, we can address arrangements at another time. Okay. I'd like to spend a little bit of time to talk about a process to engage and encourage others. Because we are the driving force behind exhibiting. You know, you are a judge because we've all mastered horticultural exhibiting. And we should be front and center and actively encouraging exhibiting, including photography. We want to invite rose friends and grandkids over to shoot your garden or meet at a public garden or even at a rose show where everything is groomed, so we can enjoy and benefit from something that's already groomed and let people capture those great shots. If you haven't taken the plunge into photography, you want to take hundreds of photos and experiment. And pretty soon, those hundreds of photos, believe me, will become thousands of photos. And after a rose show, when all the exhibitors come, be there. Make a point to give beneficial advice to those who would like to receive it. I've done this at many local, district, and national shows where someone has asked, you know, could you give me feedback? Here are my 7 photos. I didn't do so well. Could you give me some pointers? And we talked about, you know, we went through the horticultural aspects and the photographic aspects of each of the photos. Very beneficial. And when people overheard that being done, others chimed in to say, "Oh, you know, could you walk me through mine?" And it's very beneficial. People come, you know, when the doors open, and if you're there, you want to be the one. If you've judged it, you want to be the one giving the advice. Be sure even if you're not judging the photography section, you want to congratulate and recognize those participants and to encourage this upward progression that I talk about. If it's a local show, encourage them to show in the district. If it's a district show, encourage them to show in national. And if you have solid rose photography skills, you want to tuck others. You want to have mentees. You want to tuck them under your wings. I know both Rich Bear and Bill Kay. I mean, they have so many people, you know, tucked under their wings by doing photo shoots,